paroles, j'ai la musique. Ça fait un tout vraiment magnifique. Mes mains dulcines et mes en plantées là, c'est à moi que chante tout ça. J'ai les paroles, j'ai la musique. Ça fait un tout vraiment magnifique. Mes mains dulcines et mes en plantées là, c'est à moi que chante tout ça.
Mr. Bam will stay behind, and he will perform one of the most popular piece of music in Asia, especially in Asian heritage.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the finals of the FOF Chess Blitz tournament that we are running here today. We have Zycron versus Far From AD playing game one. I'm Jaxander. I'm here with my co-caster Civilock.
Yeah, we're gonna hop right into it because we've already played out a few of the opening moves. Looks like we have a pretty close position overall. Zycron playing into the center, and far from AD, developing a little bit less forward, but is slowly moving these rooks into a better position and improving their board state.
Yeah, definitely something that comes from the Queen's Gambit declined with the exchange variation is that White does get this really, really strong center. And I'm a little bit nervous about this Queen not having a whole lot of space right now for Black on the right or on the left side.
Yeah, and I think Far From AD agrees and is gonna try and reroute, but
no.
there's a blunder right here, a bit of a tactic with the pawn being pinned. So black pawn on b7, not able to recapture and pinned by the queen on b3. So that's going to be a dropped queen. Great tactical move by Zycron to seize a pretty substantial advantage at this point in the game.
I think what I would like to see from Zycron at this point is exactly what he's doing, getting this bishop into the game, and now the trades are just going to start coming out. There isn't going to be much that Far From AD can do to stop this attack with the queen missing from the board.
Yeah. Let's see. This may be a crushing attack right here. Far From AD is trying to find space, but there's just not a lot of room left for piece circulation with the battery on the C file. Oh, now they're gonna get traded off the board.
Ooh, and going back to the knight being pinned, the knight gets taken, and it's just checkmate in a few moves here.
Yeah, this should be a easy cleanup by Zycron. Knows his stuff, so don't really see a way out of this one.
I do respect the pawn check right at the end from Far From AD just to get the game going one more turn, but it will not be enough.
You gotta play for life.
Absolutely.
Some fast move getting blitzed out here, and we have a different opening situation from the last game, I believe, already.
Yeah, c4 in the Sicilian on move 2 is not something you usually see because it just gives Black a little bit too much time for the setup. And as you can see, the computer is saying that it's at a little bit of an advantage for Black, but after that trade, White gets a tiny bit of a lead here.
Yeah, slight advantage, maybe for the computer, but I think this attack on the queen side by black is pretty scary to defend against. Oh, but the knight I think gets trapped here.
You're
An
absolutely right.
uncharacteristic mistake from Zychron.
Yeah, the knight has no
Um,
moves.
we'll try to
It
take some pawns back as compensation, but I think Far From AD very happy with this. It's not an obvious conversion yet, but with that material advantage, can look to try and grind this one out and see what they can bring into the rest of the mid game.
Yeah, the question now for Zychron is what is he going to do with this compensation? There is a little bit of counterplay with this passed A pawn, but that's about all. There's also the weakness of the doubled pawns for white on the D file. So maybe there's some counterplay to be found on this left side of the board here.
Yeah, we see the computer once again favoring Far From a D, but yeah, a little bit of a weird position here. Cyclone does have that pass pawn on the A file, so I think that is something that's potentially very scary for white to defend. Even if the analysis favors white materially, that's not something that you can ignore because that material advantage can disappear really quickly if you force a unfavorable exchange to remove that pass pawn.
Absolutely. And I will say Bishop D1 is a fantastic move for from AD. I think that focusing on that F7 and H7 weakness is going to be a huge part of the next couple moves for white here, going into this like middle to late game part.
Yeah, they're gonna need to try and consolidate their pieces and maintain that good piece connectivity that they have right now. I think that's kind of what White has going for them is that they have a lot of free circulation here. Their rooks and the queen are very well connected and are coordinating to protect against this pawn push. And ooh, a pawn break getting played out here. Not sure how I feel about this. I think White was actually pretty happy with the closed off position, but with the board opening up, I think there's a little bit more potential for black counterplay here. Oh, what do you think of this
That
one, Jacksander?
that is aggressive. The bishop would be hanging, but with a bit of a queen trade opportunity here, I don't see white having enough play now on the king to actually create a threatening attack. Uh,
Yeah. I assume the thought process is along the lines of maybe just to trade off material and simplify the position. But yeah, this doesn't look like there's enough of material advantage to really convert anything here. And now this pass pawn is looking even more threatening with the queens off the board. Zychron is just going to keep marching this down. Yeah, the pawn marches forward, and it looks like Far From a Dream is getting compensation back, but I
yeah,
don't know. I'm not sure they can defend this in time.
at this point, I don't know if there's enough time. Rook B1 is going to be a big threat coming in. The bishop does have it's pretty dominant control over those light squares on F5, but getting kicked out. Bishop B1 is not an impossible move here, but I do like just the more calculated calm bishop
Yeah.
B3.
Yeah, maintain activity on the board, and there's no pawns left to kick it out of that position. But yeah, like Far From a Dream, sure, the material is okay here, but the rook is never going to be able to leave A1 for a very long time, and there's also not an easy way to capture this A2 pawn either. So yeah, we're kind of a bit of a standstill here, but I think Black's position is easier to play, even if they and speaking of easier to play, analysis board does not like knight to B3.
No, I think that rook
Is it a
A3
blunder?
here is completely crushing because it just threatens the knight off the squares. But this is
Yeah.
also good. And now the rook slots it.
Oh, yeah. Zychron sets up there and is going to be able to dislodge the rook on A1, promote, and I think that will be the end of the game. It'll be very hard for white to defend this attack with the queen on the board.
There is the play of knight C1, which stops, or I'm sorry, knight C2, which stops a little bit of the hurt here. They don't quite get the promotion for free anymore.
Yeah, so that will at least stem the bleeding. You'll trade off the rooks, but black doesn't even have to take, right? I mean,
No, in
yeah,
this
they don't
position,
have to take. Just double down. So just really calm, slowly improve the position by Zychron. He knows he has a really solid position and doesn't need to do anything crazy. And yeah, I think he'll just continue grinding it down.
I do
Keep on
believe
grinding.
I do believe that every 2200 does wrap this game up fairly cleanly.
Yeah, Zycron is pretty good at chess. For folks who don't know, Zycron is. I mean, you can see that he's. I guess it's not on the broadcast, but Zycron is rated 2100, almost 2200 on chess.com. Was previously ranked as very highly ranked in youth chess tournaments in Washington State, and is definitely no slouch when it comes to chess gameplay. And I actually went to school with Zycron, so um, knew him
Oh,
from undergrad days. Great guy. Oh
and
yeah,
just
we're just gonna get the ladder mate.
Queen moving around the board so quickly. There's not much to be done. 2 minutes on the clock.
Yeah,
You will not run out of time, and Zycron is going to take game two.
yeah, hunts him down, gets that 2-0. And what does that mean for our format today? Do we have more games? It looks like we have 4 matches of 5+0, and we need to get a 2.5 point lead to win, I believe, right?
That is correct. So as
Or not a
long
point
as
to lead. Is it first to 2.5?
it's first to 2.5, so as long
First
as
to 2.5.
Zycron can draw one of the next two games, Zycron will win this set going forward.
All right, so Far From D in a must-win situation, playing for a tournament life with the black pieces, definitely has their back against the ropes a bit here. We'll see what they can pull out, and this is a very different opening than we've seen in the last 2 games.
Yeah, Zycron mixing it up by going for an English, which is definitely something that is like very clearly a 2200 kind of opening. Not a whole lot of lower rated players are going to be playing the English or are going to be playing against the English so much. So it's going to be a lot of new territory for Far From Idea. But the position is already looking fairly solid and maybe even winning here.
This is. I'm trying to take a look about what just happened. There's a very complicated pawn exchange sequence, and I think Zycron thinks he has the rook fork. It plays out with the knight, but unwittingly allows Far From D to push the pawn with the capture, fork the queen and the rook, which is a lot more threatening than the rook fork from the knight. So I threw out a crazy exchange in the middle of the board. Far From D has a chance to win this one.
Yeah, up a rook for a pawn, I believe. Or no, I'm sorry, up an exchange right now. No, up
Yeah,
a
yeah. Potentially
uh,
a lot more after this fork resolves.
there's
Um,
definitely a lot going on here. The issue now is that Zycron has a lot of potential trades, but can't make any of them happen. That queen move, really solid.
yeah.
So, what does Far From AD really have to do to get this position consolidated and turned into a win?
Yeah, in order to convert, I mean, oh, whoa.
Wow, that is a
Whoa, so
fantastic find.
exploiting, yeah, really great tactical play here, exploiting the rook on b6 to pin the pawn to f2, so there's no take-back opportunity here. And by capturing the pawn on g3, the entire king side is just going to crumble here, so great tactical conversion. I mean, I'm not sure how much breathing room Zycron can find here, but if there's anyone who can get out of this one alive, it is Zycron. He's definitely the favorite in this tournament. It doesn't look like there's obvious counterplay at the moment, so I think Zycron is going to have to try and find a way to live through this attack. Ooh, exchanging the bishop off on the other side. Maybe relieve some of the pressure here on the kingside attack.
Yeah, exchanging the bishop for the knight is also a little bit scary, though, because when the pawn takes, it's going to open up that g file for the rook, which is going to continue making that battery on the g2 square harder and harder to defend against.
Yeah, it looks like with the bishop pin, the piece circulation on Zycron, he's down material, his piece circulation has worked. He has fewer pawns, so the king side is really constrained. So yeah, it's gonna take some crazy tactic in order for Zycron to equalize this game state. Maybe find some, I don't know, maybe some kind of queen blunder or some kind of fork. But other than that, I think Far From D, even with the elo deficit, should be able to convert this one. Backing out with the queen, actually, which I think makes sense. You know, you're so far ahead, if you're not sure what to do, just pull back, reconsolidate. You have enough time to figure out how to win. So a lot of respect there. Maybe not strictly necessary as a move, but I think it makes sense in this kind of tournament format.
Absolutely. And I think maybe queen takes a3 might have been a slightly better move, but the threat of knight taking the bishop on b6 with check would have lost Far From AD the queen if it had been left in that spot. So it was definitely a good heads up on that tactical play from Zycron.
Yeah, definitely one of the constraints of playing on these tight time controls. There's no increment, just 5 minute chess. Is that you have your material on the board, you have your tempo on the board state, but you also have another resource, which is time on your clock. And it doesn't matter how good your position is, when the timer hits 0, you lose. So it's definitely another resource that you have to manage and adds a little bit of complexity to this type of game.
And playing rook g8, sacrificing the knight for the sake of eventually playing bishop h3 is, I would say, a relatively risky play here.
Yeah. I think assuming correct play, I think Black's attack is faster and should beat out. But yeah, definitely a risky, a really confident way to play this position. With such a crushing material advantage, you don't really have to do anything crazy to win this game other than slowly grind it out. But trying to play fast here and maybe feeling a little bit of the time pressure, looking to make something happen soon.
Clock is definitely a factor. Zycron with a maybe like 10-second lead, give or take, shouldn't be too much of an issue, hopefully, considering that half the game is still left. But there is always the fear that Far From AD is looking for a move a little bit too long and the clock creeps up on him.
Yeah, right now, Far From D still has a little bit of that time advantage. Zycron taking his time on this move and looking to see if there's any ways back in this game. Uh, I think overall, though, Zycron's still feeling pretty good about this series. You know, you're up, even losing this game, you're up 2-1. You just need to force a draw or better. And just the advantage that you get of putting your opponent in that must-win situation, knowing that they must play for a win, they can't allow you any opportunity to get a perpetual check or force a draw. That is a really big psychological and tactical advantage in chess, where draws are there are a lot of ways to force draws if you want to in the mid game.
That is true, especially being able to trade down pieces. Zycron has that advantage. I will say this attack from Zycron is looking a bit threatening here. There's a big weakness on the e7 square if the knight can get there protected with a bit of a fork. This can get turned around in a couple bad moves back to back.
Yeah, and I think that's super smart by Zycron is to introduce this tactical volatility and break open the position a little bit. Because sure, even if Black's objectively winning, all it takes is one major tactical blunder, and Zycron can be right back in the game. So makes total sense. Far From D is consolidating their position, but I'm getting more and more nervous about the time as Zycron is using these really sharp tactics to drain out Far From D's clock, and you know that is the way you can lose the game. You can have the better position, and if it just takes you too long to find the right moves, you can end up not just not winning, but like throwing quite catastrophically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Zycron is gonna have to stretch here a little bit, either playing for that time or playing for those really complicated tactics. And I don't see them doing either right now with the clock ticking down to almost just 1 minute.
Yeah, I think their win streak may be about to end. Queen sliding over to e1, so maybe looking for a counterplay on the open file, but I don't really see any kind of attack. Sure, if the rook moves off of the g file, maybe he can get some cheesy back rank mate. But you know, like keep him honest, keep him honest.
There is also knight e7 check right now hanging, which would lose the rook.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very threatening tactic. I completely missed that one. We'll see if Far From Dream can spot that one and cook up appropriate counterplay.
A lot of time ticking down for Far From a Dream.
Yeah, this is really concerning. Both players using a lot of time on their clock. This is a really important position to play here for both players, so I understand the urge to use that time. That is, did he just hang his bishop? Oh no, going for the fork immediately.
Going for the fork immediately, taking the rook.
Oh,
Bishop takes a
wait.
check.
All right, so this game suddenly became really, really strange.
Back rank mate hanging on any wrong move.
This is extremely stressful. Oh, okay. Scooping up the knight and then protecting back rank mate. So Far From D is totally fine. But the clock is getting really low here. We have no increment. So we've got 33 seconds and 44 seconds respectively. That is how much time we have left for this game at the max. Queen going in. Oh, a lot of pieces flying off the board here.
Now it is Bishop Knight versus Rook. I will say the Bishop Knight is a bit more difficult technically to play, but they should theoretically be winning in this position.
Yeah, but unfortunately, theoretically, it may not matter because with only 20 seconds left on the clock, the more complicated position is looking really bad. The pawns are running down the board, and I think the bishop is going to get forced to trade off.
Absolutely. If Zycron plays for this trade, there are no more pawns left for white, so there shouldn't be a way for Far From AD to lose this unless they lose all of their pieces here for free. But a draw is just enough for Zycron to win this game.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of draw opportunities present. The analysis board, I think, believes that this position should result in a forced draw. And I think that's what Zycron's going for. 8 seconds left on the clock for both players. Oh, check's
My
going in.
goodness.
Pieces flying on the board. It's a draw.
Zycron pulling that draw out from the jaws of defeat, taking this set with the 2.5 points to a half point on the side of Far From AD. I'm wondering if they will play out the fourth game just for the sake of playing
Content. Yeah, yeah.
Just for content. Yeah, absolutely. It looks like we're getting it.
Oh, okay, we're good. The grudge content match. So the winner of this series has been cited. Zycron has the 2.5 points he needs to progress to the final stage of the tournament. But shout out to the players. They're going to give us one more match for the sole purpose of our entertainment. And here we go. We're already flying through the opening.
Yeah, a really, really strong, like center pawn based opening from white. Definitely a lot of options here, a lot of play.
Ooh, a pawn break getting played out here. And looks like Zycron opting to retake with the knight instead of the pawn to keep his structure. And ooh, bishop coming out here. Queen looking to tie things up on the king side, attacking the pawn on g7. That's a little exposed.
Bring the bishop back to defend the pawn, and oh my goodness, just some pieces flying off the board.
Yeah, a lot going on here. I think my board is a little bit ahead of the broadcast, so I'll wait a little bit to catch up. Actually, I believe our broadcast is frozen. We'll get that right back shortly. And yeah, okay, I think we're updated
back.
now. We're back. So you guys can see all the crazy action that's happened. Queens on both sides. Oh no!
Botez Gambit from Far From AD. The queen gets hung in the middle of the board.
Yeah, just beat up. We got some queen on queen action. Just e6. Remove from the board. And yeah, I think they're just gonna shuffle around, exchange material, and this should be an easy conversion by Zycron. The entire queen. Just gonna gobble up these pawns to assert dominance, and yeah, I think that's gonna be lights out.
The rook hung does not matter with checkmate in one. And Zycron will take the set 3.5 to 0.5 over Far From AD.
Yeah, a great tournament showing from Far From AD, except for the part where he brutally tilted yesterday, dropping several matches from winning position. But it's fine. It happens to the best of us. Chess is just such an emotional game. I don't think people really realize it until they play. There's this idea of chess is just this cerebral activity. Chess is the most tilting game in the world, man. It is so hard to blunder material and then play the rest of the game out. But everyone makes mistakes. You got to hang in there, grind it out, and see what kind of tactics you can use to pull yourself back in.
Yeah, and honestly, going down those two games, it was a super impressive showing in that game 3. Definitely had some winning opportunities there, and I think that if we do chess in the future again, Far From AD will do very well next time.
Yeah, I definitely expect him to make it to at least semis if run any more events. So with our next match coming up, we're going to see who Zycron's going to be facing off in the finals. And I believe we have our resident internet small-time celebrity Joshi playing against... who else is in the semifinals?
Joshi will be playing against Microbe Menace.
Yeah, I actually know nothing about Microbe Menace. I'm quite familiar with Joshi, both as a person and as a League of Legends player and as a chess player. We've had our fair share of matches against each other in the middle of the night when I'm extremely tired and blunder constantly. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think Joshi as a player is really interesting because he's a very kind of cerebral style. I think in chess, you have players who are really intuitive and they kind of have a feeling for the board state. Like this feels right. Like this is. They may not be able to articulate why, but it's just the pattern recognition of grinding out hours and hours of games and playing puzzles. It's just like certain moves like feel good. That's not really how Joshi plays the game. Joshi is a very like cerebral, intellectual type player. He really wants to understand the concepts and the logic behind the position. And that can be an advantage in some situations, but I think it can potentially hold you back on a format like this where the time controls are extremely tight. And if you rely on that really deep calculating style and making the perfect move, you can end up burning a lot of time in positions that you just need to move quickly. You need to make something happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely have not seen enough play from Joshi's opponent, Microbe Menace. They did miss their matches against Zycron in that Group A uh, pool. So there are, 4 matches or so that we have not seen. But despite missing all of those games, Microbe Menace managed to pull out second in that group.
All right. And I think our players are ready. Joshi Cast going in against Microbe. We're going to see who comes out on top to face off against Zycron in the finals. Don't go anywhere. Our games are starting in just a few short moments.
All right, a very brief break. We are jumping right into Joshi against Microbe Menace, game 1 on the board. Civlock, how are you feeling about the positioning that we are starting in?
Yeah, we see kind of a symmetric pawn structure here, but we have kind of a funkiness going on the A and B files. We see the double pawns on the B file for Microbe Menace, but I think they have a one pawn material advantage. I'm trying to count here. Yeah,
It's
they are
looking
up
like
that pawn.
Joshi is up a bishop for a pawn right now.
Oh, I see. So we must have gotten some kind of exchange, and this is the position we're left in. So this is always kind of weird because, like, yes, white has the material advantage. Objectively, it should be really winning, but as long as the position remains really close like this with the really tight pawns, it can be really hard to activate the bishop. So Joshi Cast, as I said, is going to play for that pawn break in the middle of the board. I almost said map. This
Just
is a lot like
right
League of
there.
Legends. Mid prio is really important in chess. So getting
Very-
control of the center of the board really important for allowing you to rotate around, get control, get your piece circulation, and get everything working together. So yeah, now with breaking pawns in the center, these bishops along the diagonals are going to be super powerful for white.
Yeah, absolutely. And noticing a lot of trading coming out from Joshi, which is always smart when you're up material, giving a few opportunities just to kind of whittle down the position and make sure that you get that cleaner win on the other side of this.
Yeah, and Joshi continuing to trade off material, and this pawn is so annoying to deal with. It might get traded off here. There's 3 attackers, 2 defenders. So yeah, Micro Menace has the opportunity to take this pawn off the board, but it's going to be really awkward because as soon as you take with the knight, you are pinned to the queen forever. There's still this crushing attack going directed straight toward the king along these diagonals, and yeah, Micro Menace isn't really able to find counterplay right now, scrambling to defend against this attack.
Yeah, and even taking it with the knight would lose you the exchange of a rook for a bishop. So it's a bit of an awkward position for Micro
Oh
Menace either
yeah,
way.
that is really awkward. So they're gonna have to choose here. They'll probably just have to relocate their queen, but that is really unpleasant to have to do here. There are not many great locations for it left. Like, you don't really want to move it back to e7. C6 and d6 are already covered by pawns, so that's a no-go. Like, where does the queen go? Both the diagonals on g5 and h4 are covered by the knight.
Yeah,
This is a
maybe.
very awkward position for Micro Menace. And I think he agrees because he's spending a lot of time on this move. Finds queen to f4, which is okay, I think.
It isn't
But
dead yet.
yeah, but I think he just get kicked out again? I'm thinking something like g3 to kick the queen here.
Yeah, g3 is a scary move. Even bishop c1 kicks this queen out somehow.
Oh yeah, that's actually. Oh, but no, okay. So Joshi's just gonna play a calm move, queen to c2, improve the position. Doesn't care about the queen yet. Just consolidate my pieces and attack. So I think that's a correct decision. You don't have to go crazy bouncing the queen around if you don't have to. There's nothing to gain for it. And ooh, these bishops are so annoying to deal with. It's just the piece circulation for Micro Menace sucks. You just can't activate anything.
Yeah, these 2 bishops covering basically half of the board with these massive diagonal ranges. There's just not a
Yeah.
whole lot of space for Micro Menace to move to.
Yeah, and just the siege continues as Joshi's just calmly activating his pieces, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna develop, and your pieces suck, and my pieces are awesome, and we're just gonna grind it out, and that's the Joshi style. He's not gonna go for crazy I mean, not that he doesn't play tactics, but I don't think of him as like the guy who finds like crazy tactical plays. He just plays a lot of really solid, improving moves. Doesn't do anything fancy, and it's like, I will wait for you to make a mistake, and then I will crush you and your hopes and dreams.
and, what, and what I will say about this game in comparison to our previous matches is that we're only on move 21 and both players are down half of their time.
Yeah, both of these players definitely more of the cerebral style. I know Far From a D, also known as Utility Monster. If you didn't know, same guy. Um, the Goo Band himself is a bit more of an intuition based player relative to Joshi, at least, who's very very cerebral. Um, so I think we saw that come out for Zycron versus Far From a D, where both players would like fly through the opening, and even the mid game went by pretty quickly. But yeah, both of Microbe and Joshi really looking for strong moves in this mid game position.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, they for the most part finding them. Nobody has blundered anything major in 22 moves besides the one mistake at the beginning of the game.
Yeah. But since then, Microbetis has been holding it down. Like, it's a tough position to play, but somehow managing to form this rook battery, keeping his queen active. So what should be like a really awful position still has a lot of life left in it for Microbetis.
Yeah, and Rook D8 here, a very strong move, forcing a little bit more material trade when you're up material is always a good thing to do. Making sure that just as many pieces are off the board and away from the ability to attack your king as possible.
Yeah. Then there's no counterplay, there's no counterattacks, just trade off everything. And then when you have a little bit extra, you have your king and some loose change, and they just have a naked king. That's a very relaxing way to win.
Yeah, and that's that's all you need. You don't need those flashy, super flashy, every piece is pinned to checkmates. No, get everything off the board, ladder them down, and then call it a game.
Yeah. So that's Joshi Wei, and may not even get the chance to do that because I think Micro Menace may just run down his clock looking for a way out of this one. finally moves knight to e5.
Think
Is
that
that just
that's losing.
yeah?
Rook
That
takes e8 means that there are not enough defenders of this knight with 3 attackers.
instead just taking now.
Yeah, taking a little bit earlier.
Oh, but knight takes back.
Knight takes back as a move.
I mean, at this point, Joshi can make at least plausible moves. And oh wait, I missed that completely.
Yes.
That's a great tactic.
Being able to free up the queen, taking it. The computer says mate in 16 because it's brutal. And white does get the game by resignation.
Yeah, so that's the Joshi way. You know, he grinds it down, creates a lot of tension in the position, and just forces out an error, and that he can just convert just like that. Picks up the first win, and we'll see what happens in the next game. I'm very excited to watch these players because it seems like they have a similar style and they like to use a lot of time in the middle game. So we're getting these really rich, really complex positions to watch, which is very exciting for us.
Yeah, and one thing I will say about that game is that Joshi was up material and up on a lot of time by the end of that game. So it's going to be on Microbe Menace to find those, those changes in their gameplay to make sure that they can come back for the next one.
Yeah, not the worst thing ever. And it looks like, looking at the analysis board, Joshi opening d4, c4, really classic Queen's Gambit opening. And I think Microman is just not super familiar with this opening. It looks like he got his bishop trapped by the pawn push, and that kind of set the pace for the rest of the game. I'm curious to see what opening Micromenace chooses to play when he has the white pieces, because we see that Joshi, I know that he really loves getting to play queen pawn openings. They're very stable. There's a little bit less tactical play. It's a little bit more closed compared to lifting that king pawn that reminds a little bit more defense. So yeah, and we'll see what happens for the next one.
Of the next one, it looks like we have already gotten into it a fair bit. We are completely even in material except for the exchange of a bishop for a knight. With a Roy Lopez.
Yeah. This is definitely, I'm not sure how deep Joshi's opening repertoire goes, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how familiar he is with this opening.
Yeah,
To see.
It does look like Microbe Menace played bishop takes on c6 in the Roy Lopez, which would give you that bishop for knight trade, which is considered not fantastic, but it's not considered losing either. So.
Yeah, small error on the broadcast overlay. We do switch pieces after the game, that first game, so the white pieces are Microbe Menace, not Joshi Cast. Do not be misled. Okay, we got it updated. Thank you, broadcast team. So this should accurately reflect the players now, and Joshi kind of holding back really defensively here, giving up a lot of the center, and Microbe Menace has a lot of attacking opportunities here.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of possibilities for Microbe Menace in the position. I think that, of course, pointing towards that king being castled on the side of the board, I don't actually like trading the bishop for the knight there. I think that the bishop gave a lot of opportunities on that h6 pawn, and now there's not a whole lot of attacking to be found on the side of Microbe Menace.
Yeah, and I think heuristically too, with all these center pawns getting traded off, the bishops are just really powerful. The board's super open. There's very little obstructing them. I personally value the bishop higher than the knight in this kind of game state. Like the utility of getting a jump over pieces kind of doesn't matter anymore. This knight on c3 is awful. Like, where does it go? You can't go to d5. The pawns are choking you out. You're blocked by your own pawn on e4. So it's going to take like 2 or 3 moves to develop this knight into a useful square again.
Yeah, if I were Microbe Menace, I'd probably be looking for f4, e5 at some point, just to, force the bishop out and get a little bit of aggression on that point of the board where you have the pawn advantage. Maybe even sliding that king over to h1 for a little bit of extra safety, and just trying to make anything happen in this game too.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You can even start using your own king pawns to attack with. Maybe not always recommended, but it's just really hard to break here. Microbe Menace says not about that. We'll try to break it anyway. Pushes the pawn on the A file. But yeah, it looks really airtight there on the black queen side. I just don't see anything happening to attack there.
No, and now giving up the open file for nothing feels like a bit of a mistake from Microbe Menace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe getting a little antsy here. Micro Menace had a great position, and I think throwing away a little bit of that control, just rushing into these piece exchanges to try and simplify. But because the advantage Micro Menace had was positional, it wasn't material. Trading off is just you're just losing all the tempo you had developed from the early game.
Absolutely. And now Rook D2 looks like it might be a great move for Joshi to kind of clean some stuff up here.
Ooh. Yeah, that is really annoying. Just float the rook up to d2, you break apart all the pawns, and I think the white defense is just not ready to protect the pawns, and I don't think there's really a compelling attack here yet either. Queen's threatening the f7 pawn, but oh, interesting. So Joshi is also about exchanging bishops, so I guess we're just gonna throw the minor pieces away.
Yeah,
Just
just
gonna play a late game with queens and rooks. Get into the end game.
only queens and
It's all
rooks.
good. Oh my goodness! Wait,
Joshi
what?
hangs the rook, but Microbe Menace
Oh
doesn't
no,
see
he
it.
missed it! Oh no!
Oh my goodness. And now moving the rook up. Oh, and Microbe Menace is falling apart a little bit here, hanging 2 pawns.
Oh man, if Menace had saw that, yeah, the rook was just the king was in check, and it looked scary, but the queen just eats the rook. It was not defended, and if Micro Menace had found that, he would have catapulted back into a winning position.
And
But I
now,
think Joshi's gonna cling to his pawn advantage here, and
yeah, and Microbe Menace
yeah.
finds this f4 idea, but it's too little too late because now the f4 move hangs the e pawn. Joshi
Joshi does not care.
take it.
Gonna lift the king.
Yeah, I guess if I were Microbe Menace here, I would now maybe be trying to play for a draw of some kind, maybe like queen f5 and just try to trade the queens off the board, but you lose that b2
Yeah.
pawn, and it looks like the queenside pawns for black are completely unstoppable.
This h7 move by Joshi's a little odd to me. I'm not quite sure what it's doing to improve the position. And there's not really pressure on the h6 pawn or anything yet. I guess maybe trying to escape the. Oh, I see. Trying to escape the pin. My bad. My bad. The g pawn was pinned to the king by the rook. Therefore, the g pawn was not protecting the h6 pawn. So that's why the king move comes in there to hold everything down.
I do agree, but
My
the queen was
apologies.
protecting the h6 pawn.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe a little overkill. Like, I understand the idea, but yeah, this seems a little conservative given the threats that he has on the other side of the board with the rook.
Also, Joshi just hard refusing to let this f7 pawn hang. Now actually giving it away
All right,
as soon as I
finally.
say it, because now I am foolish. Uh, but
Oh, this is really scary. Okay, so in theory, Joshi has a crushing position up, lots of pawns, 2 pass pawns, even if they're doubled. But on the other hand, there's a very threatening attack on the other side. The pawn on g7 is under a lot of pressure, currently defended by the queen, so it's okay. But if that queen is dislodged, there's checkmate with queen takes g7. So we have to keep watching that. There's a lot of blunder opportunities left available.
absolutely, and even if the queen gets dislodged off of that e file or off of protecting the g6 square, there is a perpetual in theory for white with queen g.
Ooh.
But now there is no longer that
Okay.
perpetual.
All right. But yeah, there are some tactical opportunities if Micro chooses to look for the draw. Yeah, you can just check the king over and over again along the diagonal, and then on the back rank, back to the diagonal to the back rank, and half point is definitely better than 0 points. You take what you can get, and
And,
the position kind of falls apart here at the end. And yeah, it's going to be a win for Joshi.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really strong start from Microbe Menace. I think that trading those pieces off for no real tactical reason was kind of what did them in for that game too.
Right. Yeah. No real tactical reason, and he wasn't even trading off quickly either. That's the thing is he ends up pretty much timing out there by the end. So he took a lot of exchange. I think there can be value to exchanging pieces if they just everything's flying off the board. You're just making moves, you're moving pieces, you're taking stuff so that you get that time advantage to calculate later in the game. But I don't think Micro Menace was able to stockpile enough time off of those exchanges to actually convert into a threatening attack afterward either. So we'll have to see if Micro Menace is able to manage his time better. Oh my goodness, already some crazy tactics happening in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Hanging the B7 pawn kind of for that like almost poison pawn Sicilian variation to some extent. Just giving up that pawn, not attacking the queen in any way, so you don't win tempo for it is a bit scary already. White does have a slight advantage already here on move 8.
Yeah, a slight advantage, but overall, I just think the position Joshi has with the white piece is much easier to play. You have this really active queen. You just play logical developing moves, get your minus pieces out and attack. Whereas black is really constrained here. You don't have a lot of space to grow. You don't have great places for your bishops and your knights to land. I guess you just castle. And the one thing black does have going for them is they have this open B file that maybe they can get their rook onto, but overall it's a lot easier to play this white position. You have so much more space to work with.
100%. What I'd love to see from Joshi to close this out a little bit is a little more developing, just making sure that that bishop gets off the back file. But it looks like to some extent Microbe is forcing those developments, getting the knight off the back file by taking it, getting the bishop off the back file with the check.
Yeah, Micro Menace, see piece, take piece. That seems to be the Micro Menace way. Just attacking, trading. But Joshi's just calmly defending. He's taking these pieces off the board, and he's like, "Yeah, it's cool. I don't need castling rights. My rooks are going to be on your side of the board, so they don't need to be over here anyway."
That's right. Yeah, and now going into this middle game, because of not castling, Joshi does have this like weirdly active king, which can come back to be a weakness if the queen gets out too quickly. But right now, the queen's a little bit stuck. I'm sorry, is the knight on g5 just hanging?
No, it is, but the queen takes back on d7, so it would be a
Okay,
knight
yeah,
exchange.
yeah.
But
Okay,
yes,
right, right.
technically the knight is hanging, but the queen is also defending the other knight.
I feel like just taking the knight, yeah, just taking the knight
wait,
here.
whoa! Okay, computer hates that move. What happened?
Taking the knight here allows the knight exchange, and then queen takes g2 with check.
Oh my!
And the position just falls apart instantly for Joshi if this happens.
Does he see it though? Does he see it? That's the thing. Micro Menace continuing to use time. He's thinking. It was a very subtle change to the position, so I totally would not notice if I was playing. But the fact that the F pawn is no longer blocking that queen check. Oh no, doesn't find it. Oh.
And just a little bit too passive. Now actually on g3, g4, the black knight on h5 has to go all the way back to g7, which is just such an ugly position.
Oh. Yes, and that's kind of what I meant earlier is that like yeah, black has opportunities to get counterplay in this sort of position, but it's just so much harder to find that move just cuz if you take a look like basically white is playing on the rows 1 through 5 and black's kind of just stuck on 8 through 6 and it's just so hard to get your pieces to do anything when you can't even the rooks and the queen are still stuck on the back rank compared to this really active queen by Joshi.
I will say I don't love this knight move from Joshi. It does allow black to force the doubled pawns on the e file and get that f pawn away from the
Ooh.
attack on the king side.
Yeah, and that's the queen
Never
is
mind,
going to
taking
take
the
back.
queen.
So avoiding the double pawns, but I kind of liked the queen over there. Maybe Joshi's happy rotating over here to find more activity towards the king, but yeah, maybe an unnecessary knight move. The king is going to shuffle over here. That's interesting. I wonder what that implies. Oh, getting off of the pin because the queen is on the d file, and
Ooh.
that was a big move according to the computer, and it likes black's position now. Can the pawn just take? No, the pawn
No.
cannot take.
I think that Oh, you can just push to e5 and defend that pawn, I think.
Oh,
And then if they
interesting.
take queen, the rook comes over to that e file and threatens now onto the king a little bit.
All right, but instead we're going to see a pawn push to attack the queen. Pawns are going to trade off, I believe, here. And now I'm not sure who is a better position. Ooh, interesting rook take back instead of with the pawn.
Yeah, I think taking with
Ooh,
the
that
e
can't be
pawn
right. Oh, okay.
would
So
have
knight take
been
back, queen takes back.
better. Rook f7, only move. Does
Okay,
find it.
okay. So we've kind of entered a little bit of a lull state here. The pieces are even, but the pawn difference may come back to bite Micro Menace. It's going to be a 2 pawn advantage for Joshi, which is a lot at this point in the game, especially because one of them is a pass pawn in the middle of the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joshi, did close out that last game with a very small material lead. Only, there was the one little rook hang at one point in the game, but as long as that doesn't happen again, this should be Joshi's game to lose.
Yeah, he has the 30 seconds time lead. He has a material advantage. And on top of all that, this is the kind of game that Joshi excels at. Those crazy, wild tactical positions. Not his forte. It's not bad at them, but it's not a strong suit. But like these kind of really slow, methodical positions, when all the pieces are off, you can get to some pretty deep calculation. Joshi really excels at these types of positions, and he loves to just grind people down. So I think he's really going to be in his comfort zone here.
Yeah, and I will say a lot of counterplay coming out from Micro Menace onto this, F pawn.
Yeah.
Maybe if he can get his king unpinned.
Yeah, right now the
Oh,
rook is threatening, but wait,
it looks like
is it
no, everything. Okay.
interesting reposition here. I like that.
Oh,
May
it's a
just end up
little.
being a queen trade, but
Yeah, okay. And this seems pretty clean for Joshi at this point.
yeah, he should be able to just make logical improving moves and get his pawns out, and he should just be able to walk his e-pawn down to the end and force either rook to get stuck on e8 indefinitely or even promote.
Yeah, and again, h4 a fantastic move, just making sure that g5 can never be a winning move.
That's just
Getting
throttling the black king here. There's just no room to breathe.
getting the rook down there. And now Joshi would have to make uh, a massive mistake to lose this game.
Yeah. And the time advantage for Joshi has evaporated a bit, but like, yeah, it shouldn't matter. I don't expect it to.
And that is just a great move, making sure that the rooks get traded off. And
Oh, that
yeah,
has to be game. The rook and king forked by the pawn.
and
And yeah, Microman is gonna resign, and Joshi is up 2-0, I
I
believe.
think 3-0 now.
3-0. Yeah, that was the third game. We
That
had
was game
some
three.
quick matches. And I think that will be it for these players. They may play the last match out for content.
For content.
See if they start up in next one.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see Micro Menace take one. I think
Yeah,
that they clearly have like the skill to do it. They were up
yeah, for sure.
most of that second game, and Joshi did hang that rook.
It looks like we don't see a fourth game starting, so I think that may be the final match. Yeah, big shout out to Micro Menace. I think even with the score being decisive, playing really strong openings, and there had a lot of counterplay. I think that was something that Micro Menace was really excelling at, is just not rolling over and dying, but continuing to look for counterplay on the opposite side of the board. So I'm really excited to see maybe Micro Menace return to future FOF chess events and see how they can match up against the opposition. Definitely wouldn't be surprised to see them make semifinals or even further next time, especially with improvement in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that again, like making Joshi work for it every single step of the way was a huge part of that series. Just any time that Joshi had, a reasonable lead of some kind, there was an attack where if Joshi made, one or two wrong moves, the game could swing completely the opposite way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw some major blunders coming out of Joshi, especially that hanging rook. I think in game 2,
Yeah, game 2.
That would have instantly flipped the game on its head. But yeah, so much, especially playing on 5 minute with no increment, keeping cool and having that intuition to look at the board state and think like, this is a turn I can spend 15 seconds on, or like this is a turn I need to just make any move and go. And like knowing the difference, that is a skill in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So our grand finals, that means, will be Joshi playing up against Zychron. That's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, I think we fully expected Zychron to be in the finals. He's definitely the favorite to win it, but anything can happen, especially in 5 minute blitz with no increment. You can get some cheese wins on the clock if you can make solid enough moves fast enough. So we're definitely gonna have to see, can Joshi meet Zychron with his prep, meet him with his practice, and pull out some gains. We'll have to see.
And I think that will.
Scored 999 roses. Let's give him a big round of applause once again for the performance.
Found a little bit of light, trying to find my heart. Honey, when I break out a lifestyle dark. Honey, when I rank at a tight flow spark. What a psycho chart, playing dice, go starter. Who are you? Better know yourself. Know your soul, gotta know your wealth. Slow your roll, get a hold, don't melt. And don't you fall when I feel like hell. Well, who am I? Am I and me? I'm not the one you wanna fuck with. Late nights messing up my sleep, so I'm flustered. Taking out aggression with my pen because I trust it. Writing, trying to get myself a lamb color cuss for the game. Leave from hanging by a chain, click, bang. Feeling rage, feeling fire in my brain, feel insane. And it's all we feel the flame. 45 to my brain, praying for it, please tell. No glory.
right, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary individuals. We are loading back into the chessboard. We have Zycron opening with Joshi's favorite opening, the Queen's Gambit, and we have a bit of a mirrored pawn structure here.
The Queen's Gambit decline going into a very interesting little like three knights variation. That tension between
The Queen flying out, and Knight comes out to defend, so not hanging the bishop yet, but this is still a very unpleasant situation to play as black. Everything's a little bit spread thin here. This knight is working overtime. Someone give that knight a raise.
I don't.
He's blocking stuff. He's protecting stuff. He's he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
and
that knight capture
gonna get traded off.
massive.
Ooh.
So
Wait, that
Zycron-
pawn is hanging, right? Queen
pawn
takes
is hanging.
c6. This is very bad already for Joshi. Oh, no.
Oh.
The bishop's gonna come out.
I guess so. Queen takes
So-
c6 and met with the bishop attacking it on d7.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So maybe not wanting to get into the shenanigans there, because I think you can get away with the queen safely, but it's annoying. So maybe Zycron says, I don't want to calculate that. I know that developing pieces is good, so he's just going to make calm developing moves. Respect it.
And I would
Knight
say
coming in to attack the c3 pawn. Zycron sees that, no problem. Pulls the queen back. So overall, slight material advantage for... No, we're actually even in material, right?
yeah, we're completely even in material.
Wow.
That calm developing move from Zycron, though, bishop a3, does prevent Joshi from ever castling that king away from the center of the board.
That is a very good point. I didn't realize that, and Joshi has no real way to dislodge this a3 bishop. So that's going to be very annoying. So maybe not objectively correct from a computer standpoint, but I think it's a very simple, logical move that's very hard to defend against. So yeah, the knight's going to come back in to plug the hole for a turn so that Joshi can finally castle on the king side.
Yeah, and at this point, c5 seems like a really scary move, just like a little bit annoying. It gets in that spot, but then it doesn't prevent the castling anymore.
Oh, the pawns are going to get traded off here. Huh.
Now, like a pretty balanced position overall.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a pawn weakness on c3 since there's not great connectivity here. I wouldn't be surprised to see Zycron try to trade it off for the d5 pawn at some point. But conversely, if the c pawn ever gets passed or the d pawn gets removed, that pawn weakness could turn into a passed pawn. So there's a lot going on both sides. Interesting pawn push there. That is very aggressive by Joshi. Does not care for keeping that for the castle. Maybe might end up electing to just not castle this game.
Yeah, f5, an extraordinarily aggressive push. I think the rook c8 might have been a bit more of the calm, collected way of going about this position.
Yeah, certainly. But I'm gonna play fast and loose here, and I mean, both players have about 3 minutes left on the clock, so not unheard of to try and press the tempo of the game a bit. Oh, castling anyway, very brave. Now has this rook backing the f-file pawn push.
Yeah, and I think that this position overall is pretty comfortable for both players. That pawn push definitely being something that'll make it more
a little less comfortable. Yeah.
A little bit less comfortable for both sides. But
there's a lot of tension on the c-file here because both players trying to stack all their major pieces here. Rook gonna slide over, so it's gonna be the battle for the c-file here.
We are in fact we're probably gonna see a few pieces flying off the board in just a second here.
What if pawn c5 though? Is that a move?
C5 does look like a move. C takes d5
gonna
though is played.
So the queens are attacking each other.
And this is a great...
Oh, black must take. Okay, black must take because his queen only has one defender. Joshi's queen only has one defender, so he must exchange. And Joshi will have the opportunity to exchange rooks if he chooses. Does choose to do so.
Yeah, an extremely high-level play here from Zycron, knowing that c-pawn was the primary weakness in the position, and so making sure to push it up the board and get it traded off just so that weakness isn't something that Joshi can target in the future of the game.
Yeah, super duper smart. Looks like Joshi will scoop up the d5 pawn here. No, going to kick the bishop one more time. I think
Yeah,
Cycron should just be able to calmly relocate over to D2.
yeah. I think overall it's very solid decision
Oh,
making.
whoa,
Oh,
whoa, whoa. Okay, that's spicy. It's spicy. So we're gonna a little bit of counterattack here.
yeah, a little bit of an interposed move just to make sure that keeping Joshi on the toes a little bit, making sure that there are no pre moves, or else we're in trouble.
Yeah, you can ego check a little bit. It's just like, just are you playing respectfully?
Yeah,
Not doing
and
anything crazy. Not trying to cheat 2 seconds out of me.
Joshi was respecting, so good on Joshi for making sure not to get hit with the vibe check a little bit there.
Okay. Ooh, the pin here. I think is gonna force the bishop exchange.
Yeah,
Because it is pinned to the king, so you can't really allow that to persist. Could slide the rook over to defend, but overall, I think it makes a lot more sense to just trade off here. Yeah,
yeah.
that's what
Actually, a
happens.
fantastic move because it forces two attackers onto that a5 pawn, and now there's just no way to keep it.
Ooh, there's simply no way to defend it. So Joshi will not be able to hang on to the a pawn, and there's not really anything that's not nailed down that he can hit on the other side. This b file pawn is very safe. Ooh, okay, hitting the bishop, but instead just taking with the bishop. So Cyclone finds a clean answer.
Yep, but
Attacking
maneuvering
the
over to
pawn.
attacking the.
Oh,
Ooh,
this structure is so annoying to deal with when you have the bishop and the pawn working together in the endgame. And it's just they protect each other. It's really hard to break, and I don't know what Joshi can do against this relentless B pawn push now at this point.
Zychron's position is just completely locked down. There is not a whole lot of play for Joshi right now. I like attacking on this f2 square because if you push the f pawn, then the king gets stuck on this back row.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And with the king stuck there, I guess maybe Joshi needs to activate his king, that's for sure. Because right now the B pawn push is still a major threat at some
And
point.
knight
Not yet, not yet. But
knight d2, a fantastic move, threatening the f pawn with the knight. And also, if the f pawn pushes, you can still play knight f3 and force taking that h2 pawn.
yeah, mixing in that check there. King is kind of stuck on G1 right now. Or at the very least, stuck on the first rank. Pawn
Here we go,
goes
the f
up.
pawn does get pushed, and there's the check. If king h1, it would have been checkmate in one move, so glad not to have seen it.
Yep, that's good. It's good.
Don't hang checkmate, especially if you are 2200 rating, and you will be doing fine for yourself.
And yep. Zychron's just gonna calmly slide his king over, activate his king. And probably
Yeah,
kick the rook off of the b file.
now,
Finally
admittedly,
free up his b pawn to move once again.
this knight's very awkward here.
Hmm.
It's looking almost
Oh,
trapped. It has no
it's
backwards
stuck.
moves.
Yeah, it's really behind enemy lines there. No way out. No way home. But at least is taking a few squares away from the white king. But oh, here we go. Here's the b pawn push, and I think Joshi's king is not active enough. Yeah, there's
Oh,
nothing to stop the
Joshi!
b pawn push. Oh.
Joshi hangs the rook to the bishop in just one move. The game ends. There
Yeah, I
is
think looking for the
theoretically.
tactic, because I think he thought that it was protected by the knight and that he would be able to just, slide over, get the skewer onto the rook. But yeah, not quite getting the full tactic. And here we
Yeah.
go. Both players playing both sides of the Queen's Gambit, but Zychron's answer is a little bit different. Rapidly looking for the bishop onto g7. I think it's going to be a King's Indian defense.
It is. It's super solid opening. Usually not something you would see at like a GM level for like classical chess, but it's a fantastic blitz opening because it's so solid. It's so hard to break, and you
Yeah.
don't get a whole lot of openings, especially if you're playing for those draws as black, so that you can play for those wins as white in a format like this.
Exactly, yeah. And I think in really deep engine analysis shows that King's Indian defense is not super sound. Like there are exploits you can do, but they're like very deep and very subtle, and it's not really something it's realistic for a human player to find on 5-minute chess. So yeah, just like a
absolutely.
really smart opening choice tactically for the format. Slow developing moves from Joshi, just calmly improving the position. Ooh, and a bit of a spicy pawn break coming out of Zychron here.
Yeah,
This
that's
is not typically what you see out of the King's Indian defense, because normally you're playing for a break along. Oh, hold the thought.
the b4 push almost forcing this trade on d3.
Yeah. So we're gonna take some minor pieces off the board. Ooh, okay. Things are speeding up a little bit. Bishop
And,
coming in to pin the e4 knight.
and the computer saying castling only move here for white. Just making sure that your king is not in the center of this board when it all goes.
Ooh, wait. Okay, so
Bishop
computer is
d6.
worried here for white. Is there some tactic here?
I don't see a major tactic here, but I do think that this king could end up getting stuck after all is said and done in the middle of this
Okay, so the
position.
bishop is attacking d8, but if you ignore that, bishop takes e4, the queen is under threat. Okay, no, just gonna relocate. There may have I think there's a weird tactical exchange where bishop takes e4, counterattacking the white queen. If bishop takes... Okay, we'll hold that thought. Knight's gonna get kicked off of g4.
Oh, you're absolutely right about that. Bishop taking e4. Just making sure that everything is threatened all at once. And you don't quite win the bishop, but you do get a lot of tempo in the middle there.
Yeah, makes sense, but easy for me to find that move in my comfortable caster chair with the engine.
With the engine telling us the position is winning.
Yeah. It's like we were saying earlier about chess puzzles, during the intermission, if you got a chess puzzle, there's a really good move waiting for you. But when you're actually playing chess, sometimes it's like, oh, there's a really good move waiting for me. And you think about it for 3 minutes and you're like, actually, there's nothing. And then you move your rook over 2 squares. So hard to know where to dedicate time in. And that's like a skill in itself in this kind of format.
And now, I will say this is such a scary position to be in if you're Joshi.
Yeah.
No pawns left to protect this king.
Yeah, this king is very naked. Hasn't even castled yet. I suppose he could. I'm not sure what it would accomplish. At least you would get your rook a little more active, but still has castling rights.
Yeah, I guess maybe you castle like kingside and just let those G and H pawns sit there for a little while. But there's
yeah, it's very strange. Very strange. Ooh, this E pawn is
E4.
really annoying.
And then queen sliding over the position, saying that this is the computer saying that this is very good for black because of rook A to F8 being just such an extremely forcing move. And
he finds it.
And Zychron just finds that so fast.
And I think that's just gonna blow open the kingside defense for Joshi. There's nothing standing in between this rook battery and his king, and it's gonna be very hard for him to coordinate his pieces with the king trapped here, separating the rooks.
And what's even scarier is that Joshi has allowed Zychron this queen A4 idea, where the queen is just going to sneak into the back line of this position.
Ooh, yeah, queen can infiltrate through A4. And there's all kinds of bad stuff that happens once that goes through. Ooh, yeah. All right, gonna eat up that free pawn. That one's simple, so we'll do that first.
There is the idea of knight E6 is a bold move in the position.
Yeah, so declaring that he doesn't believe in this attack, but I feel like Joshi really should believe in this attack because more is coming. Bishop flying over, and that I think Joshi may just die here.
I'm not seeing a whole lot of options.
I think rook blocks is the only move. Takes,
and then your
queen infiltrates A4. I think, this. I think rook F1 is coming, right? Oh, blocking with the queen.
Yeah, rook F1 is coming.
Yeah, rook F1's coming, and I think that's a lights out for Joshi. Really beautiful piece coordination at the end there by Zychron. There's just man.
And that is lights. That is curtains.
That's what it's like to play against 2200, I guess.
That is
Icon
what it is
pretty
like.
good at chess.
You give him an inching, he will take a mile. Any small mistake will just open up everything too quickly.
All right, running into game 3. This is Joshi playing for tournament life. On match point, Zychron needs a win or a draw to seal this one out. And I like just a little bit of backstory because I actually went to school with Zychron. We went to University of Washington together, and we did a similar early entrance program. So Zychron is a super bright guy. We played a lot of League of Legends together actually back in the day, and Zychron always tilts me because he's a super smart guy and is like he has incredible pattern recognition. He picks up new skills really fast. Probably no wonder he's pretty good at chess. But he would always play a new champion every single game in League of Legends. He didn't want to. His goal is to try and get every single champion to mastery level 5. So he
Oh.
never plays a champion once he hits mastery level 5. So he's always playing a new champion that he's playing. He would run it down to the first 15 minutes, and then the last 15 minutes he would finally figure out how to play his champion, and then Giga carry the rest of the game. So that's Zychron for you. He's got a lot going on in his brain.
And that ability to just like figure things out and make it happen quickly is on full display right now. If Joshi doesn't do anything, this bishop does get trapped on the left side of the board by these pawns.
Yeah, the kind of really adaptive, flexible style of Zychron, I think, is really hard style matchup for Joshi. So in addition to the MMR difference, Joshi likes to have very stable positions that he has time to think through. But Zychron is more than happy to just throw the entire kitchen sink at Joshi and like, hey, figure this out. Calculating is for defenders. And if you find the wrong move, I will kill you. And already all the minor pieces getting choked out here. Oh, the bishop is trapped. Nowhere left to go.
Yeah, the bishop just gets trapped. And look at just like all of the pieces on the left side of this board here. These pawns are so unbelievably suffocating. Like this bishop's trapped. The light squared bishop for black is also just in a not having a
that's
good time.
Brutal.
The queen has no moves. The knight has like a move. It's just not looking good in this game 3 for Joshi.
Joshi going to take his constellation pawn, going to lose the bishop no matter what, so at least get something back. Castling into this. I guess he can't castle a king site, but this does not feel like a very safe fortress for the Black King.
No, immediately
Joshi...
Zychron putting that rook on that semi-open file.
Yep. Oh, he's gonna break open the pawns, and this is everything's falling apart here. It may not look like a huge advantage, but it's just once the rooks line up on, there's just nothing to stop the rooks lining up on the B file. Oh
and
no!
plundering the queen. The resignation for game 3.
A little bit of a quick end to that third match.
And again, really, it was one or two maybe positional mistakes that led to the bishop being lost, the queen being lost, the position blowing up completely. But we are going to get the 4th game for the content.
Oh, here we go. Do it for the fans. Do it for the community. Queen's game getting played again. It's a bit of a favorite, and we're going to turn to the same position that we had in a previous game. Joshi playing the Queen's game. Oh. Okay. Joshi playing all his pawns.
Joshi, hey, can we get okay, let's go H4. Can we get A4? A4 on the board. Let's see it. Not quite. We can't get A4.
Zychron adapting a little bit. Not going to play the traditional King's Indian defense of the pawn onto E5, as there are a lot of pawns attacking that square. Instead, attacking on the other side, C5. Knight goes to D5. Apparently is a massive blunder. But Knight takes the pawn center, which is no longer defended. And things are heating up fast.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, the opening repertoire really being shown here from Joshi, just being able to kind of throw anything here at Zychron, but then Zychron being able to turn it around and show, you can throw all your pawns at me and I will know what to do. I am, in fact, 2200.
Yeah. As the engine says, this is the King's Indian defense. 4 pawns attack variation, pretty aptly named. Although I think it's only 3 pawns left of those 4 attacking pawns, so this knight is kind of in a weird spot on D5, so we'll see what Joshi chooses to do with it. Gonna liquidate some material here.
Yeah, I mean, if I were Joshi, I would definitely be playing for time right now.
Yeah.
You might be down 30 seconds, but if you can be confusing enough, you can win any 5-minute game.
True. That's
Given
if
enough.
you don't know what your plan is, how will your opponent know what your plan is? It's an unbeatable strategy, foolproof, if you will.
Absolutely. And I think that that's the way to trick Zycron here into hanging every single piece or losing on time.
Yeah, you can
Uh,
give him the good old bamboozle, but actually it's Joshi who's spending a lot of time on this move. A little confused on what to do next.
Ooh, but Zycron making a mistake. Bishop takes c5 does mean that the knight is hanging.
Oh yeah, that is concerning.
Oh wait, no, I'm foolish. Knight c2 is check, and you lose.
Yep. Okay.
Or knight
Oh,
d3. Yeah, and you lose the bishop. Okay, yep.
okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, no, actually, nope. No
All right,
mistakes.
so
Zycron's
Bishop's
never made a mistake.
gonna. Yep, never. How could we doubt this man? He's too good, too good at chess.
Just too amazing.
All right,
too
Joshi,
talented.
come on, you can do it. Just develop your pieces, get your knight in the game. He's almost there. All right, Joshi to move his rook a few more times, and
Yeah.
it's gonna get immediately traded off. So, no, we're going back. We're dodging
Okay.
it. And
And
knight's
yeah,
going
the
up.
a7 pawn
Okay.
was hanging. We take it.
All right, we're getting some material back. Pawns are good.
All right, Zycron playing rook d8, then rook e8, then rook back to d8 in 3 moves.
So one, you know, you gotta. It's all about those rotations.
And taking the rook from across the board with the bishop will cause the resignation from Joshi in a fascinating,
a spectacular game 4, a 4-0 sweep from Zycron. I think that will make him our first time FOF chess champion. So congratulations to Zycron for showing us how it's done. Wonderful, very entertaining games for all of us to watch.
Yeah, absolutely massive congratulations to Zycron, not dropping a game from groups all the way to the finals of this event. Just showing absolute dominance of the game and just winning it clean.
Yeah, thank you very much to everyone for watching. This was a little bit of an experimental broadcast for us, but I think it was went really well. The content was really great. So if you want to see more chess content just like this on the FOF broadcast, or if you have any other suggestions for other games other than League of Legends, any other ideas for tournaments or interesting formats that you want to try, definitely let us know. You can find us on Discord. You can find the legendary Chris Sunga himself or anyone else on the broadcast team to make those suggestions. And thank you for all the players who came together and make this event happen. I know Joshi has been really excited about it and really driving a lot of the organizing behind an event like this. We've had a lot of different ideas for the format, and it would be really exciting to come back and see maybe longer time controls or a different kind of format now that kind of see how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more chess we can get, the better. And maybe somebody from the chat can come in and challenge Zycron for the throne next time. We'll see how it goes. And yeah, thank you all for having me on this broadcast. I appreciate you. Thank you, Civilov, for commentating with me. It's been a pleasure. And I think we'll see you next time.